It's time for Washington Fish Side Quest. This episode, Hood Canal Shrimping 101. Hey Washington Fish Questers, Blake here. After I did the Shad 101, long time, that's a loud car, long time friend of the show, John Grady, asked if I could do a shrimping 101. And I know when I did my shrimping video before, I definitely was new to shrimping. I probably went like 3 times as an adult. Definitely did a lot of stuff wrong, so that seemed like a good 101 to do. And hey, I'm shrimping right now. So first I'll go over gear. So what you'd need is these shrimp pots here. I got these 3 octagonal ones. Well, I guess Shingo's, the Bertha over there, is octagonal too. But I got these for 66 bucks each, which is, I think, is a pretty good deal. Back when they used to do Salmon University, a thing you actually attended, I think it was 2014 maybe. And then the bait canisters inside, I think, run, I don't know, about 10. Then you need harnesses as well. Shingo actually made that one for one of my pots, which I appreciate. And then Shingo here has a much bigger pot. And it does seem to do a lot better than the smaller pots. Like, you wouldn't think that it would, or at least I wouldn't think so. I mean, I don't get the difference as far as, you know, it's not like the shrimp are going to be crammed for space, but it seems to do better. And as you can see, we have weights in the pots. Honestly, my pots are a little underweighted. I think maybe 15 should be about the minimum, and I got 10 in some of these. Different ways, different things, you know, those are weights. I think those cost like $2.50 each at a sporting goods store, just as dumbbells. Then here are just kind of some halibut weights in this one. And this one has the classic kind of green lead weights. In the first video I did, I mixed up the bait, and a lot of people do have their own secret baits and mixes and stuff they use. Some are commercial, some are you know, house-made. I gotta say, the biggest thing I've learned, in my opinion, you know, over the years, is now we just use cat food. It's as long as it's oily, like got some tuna in it or mackerel or something. I honestly can't tell the difference between mixing up a bait, you know, in your blender versus just popping some of these into the canister. People will probably dispute that. You know, for some reason, baits and cleaning of crab or anything is kind of like the most controversial thing to talk about in the shellfish world. But to me, these work just as good. So that's a lesson learned. So as you can see, I don't fill it all the way up. I leave some space in there because you want it to kind of dissipate. We want this to be about half full when we pull it up, so it's even a good scent trail. As if the shrimp weren't enough, a big reason Shingo and I like shrimping in the South Hood Canal is you can swing by the Hood Sports dock, the public dock there, and get off, and you can either go to the IGA, get some chicken strips, go to the Hood Canal Coffee Co. and get some ice cream or coffee or a scone, and it makes for a wonderful day. Alright, it's prep time. I'm going to get these pots tied up here. So, Tim from the original episode shared this idea with me. These rollers he got from, you know, you can get from Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace or True Value or whoever, but they're for electrical cable. They actually fit 400 feet of poly rope just fine. So speaking of line, yeah, you can either use poly line, but then you need to put at least 1 weight on it, maybe 2, depending on the conditions, or you can use lead line, which will just sink. 400 feet's a lot of line, and we're going to be usually drop anywhere between about 220 and maybe 320 at the complete max. Shrimp do not like sunlight, so they're going to head down. The longer the day goes and the lighter it is. If it's a nice overcast day, you might catch them more around 200 feet. Looks like we could be showing something on the bottom there at 310. Could be a bunch of bait, or it could be a big swarm of shrimp. Alright, it's time for some fine voiceover work. So it's almost 9 a.m. when we can drop the pots, and that's all we're concentrating on here. So you can drop them right at 9. You know, it's going to take a while to get down, and since we're using poly line, we do have some lead line on the boat, but we're going to use poly. You got to remember to put those weights on. And you want to make sure, even if you drop them, we got 400 feet of line here on most of these lines. Shingo's has 325, and he has an additional 75 you can put on there if we need to go deep. But you want to leave some extra line for sure. If it's 300 feet deep, you don't want to have like 305 feet of line, because what can happen is they can slide, and they do slide down the ridges. So when you drop, it's even though you want to get your pots in the water as soon as possible, it pays just to sit there by the buoy and see if it starts to go down. We have grabbed some pots that have started headed that way. We've seen that happen to other people. So when you put your pots down, it pays to stick with them for a little bit, just a minute or two, just to make sure they're good. Well, it's 9:30 and all the pots are in. Usually we get them in 15 to 20. This time it took us up to 9:30. And it's because there's so many boats out here. Shingo and I were joking because we're usually super lucky or maybe skilled, hopefully both, at shrimping. And we were joking that we have a spanking coming at some point here. And this could be it because it's super crowded. I'm filming it. My wife Vanessa is going to come down and jump on the boat when we do our first pulls in hopes that we can get 3 limits because we've been just knocking it dead this season. As Shingo and I come back to port, it's just so much more crowded. It used to be this crowded, and then there was a year where there wasn't many shrimp, and it kind of made the crowds die. And I think the shrimp are more or less back now, so now it's like 3 or 4 times more crowded than the last time we were out this year. So we'll see. We will see. Oh, hey, I forgot to mention at the top of the episode, shrimping is only open usually from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in Hood Canal, so it's a 4-hour window. We usually do 3 sets of pulls. So we have 4 pots for the boat, and that's as much as any boat can have. It's not like crabbing where every person gets 2 pots. Every person gets 2 pots up to 2 people. So basically you could have a boat with 10 people on it and only have 4 pots, or you could be like Shingo and I and have a boat with 2 people on it and have 4 pots. 4 pots is the max. So, you know, we do 3 rounds of pulls throughout the day if you know, we have to go to the end. And what that kind of looks like is the first set we'll let soak until maybe about 10-15 or so usually. You know, it's about like in, I don't know, maybe our medium range soak. And we like to spread them out more so depth-wise. A lot of people put their pots in a line, which can be productive, but we like to kind of figure out the depth where they're at. Although I said that, you know, the more lighter it is, the deeper they go. Sometimes they'll surprise you. Sometimes they'll be really bright out and you'll catch them at like 230. And feet deep, I mean, and it just doesn't make any sense, but that's where they are. In which case we would take our other 3 pots after we pull them and kind of put them at that depth. So the first set we about 10 till about 10-15. That second set we'll let sit a little longer, usually maybe, you know, an hour 15 to an hour and a half. And then the last set of pulls is usually like whatever time we have left, because at that point we're usually really close anyway, but you're looking at maybe an hour soak, probably more like 50 minutes. It takes about 5 minutes with the pot puller, and by the way, I'll talk about pot pullers now. So you want to make sure that you're getting those last pots out of the water. You know, if it closes at 1, you probably want to start by at least 12:35. All right, pot pullers. Now, as you might recall from the episode with Tim and I, the first one I did when we were kind of noobs still, we did it by hand, and you can do it by hand. If that was the case, I wouldn't do 3 sets of a total of 12 pulls. So Tim's a fireman. He's very fit. I am not fit. You know, we were the first couple, like kind of no problem. I mean, it's very hard, but you know, you can do it just with 1 person. It's really that second set you start dying, in that third set's just like forget about it. So it builds up, you know, really takes a toll on the shoulders. Tim and I were pulling it hand over hand, side by side, and you know, it was still tough. So you can do it without a pot puller. Don't let that stop you, but make sure you got 2 stout people to pull and that you have no shoulder issues or anything like that. The pot puller is frankly probably about the best investment ever made, although it is very expensive. So I got a Scotty here. Geez, I think this ran about $300. I think is about what they go for. I could be wrong. As you can see, it's very compact versus like the Ace Brutus line hauler, which is taller. So I guess really the advantage is probably the Scotty's a little cheaper versus the Ace, which will actually lift your pot up out of the water, so you don't have to like hold over the boat. So with the Scotty, you'll notice on Shingo's boat, it doesn't quite go over the gunnel, so we just have it going straight like this, and the ropes that's going over the gunnel doesn't seem to matter at all. Pretty simple machine. This just turns. It can turn forever on a really low charge too. Yeah. Here comes me lovely wife Vanessa. Like I said, we're gonna try to get 3 limits. It's that hubris that might have us in line for a disappointment. So something that Shingo recently came up with was this black bin. We dump our shrimp in them because if you're doing good with the shrimp due to the limited time and you're under your limit, you know, we just dump them in there and pop the heads off later. We'll show you how to clean them a bit later in the video. All right, here comes our first pull. So we pulled up the first buoy here. We popped off the buoy itself. We like to put our line back on our spools just because the line can get tangled up really easily. So it's usually a 2-person job here. So I'm going to wrap this around like that. And then you hand it to Vanessa. Now if Vanessa's on your boat, I don't know what you do. And then turn it on. And Vanessa hands me this end. Or I guess Vanessa can turn it on. I don't know why I'm doing all this. But...
Do I know how to do this thing?
Oh, okay, then I will turn it on. There we go. Then you just pull the line.
Okay. much easier than the old days.
Yep. Oh. No. This is bad. 3, 1 shrimp apiece. Woo! All right, so now what we'll do, we're at 250. This could have been a little shallow. So we're gonna just keep this in the boat for now, maybe put another can of cat food in it, and wait until we find success to drop it again. Too bad we won't film the next one.
Oh, that's better.
Woo! Still not great, but I bet there's about 20 in here. Let's see. 32. And here's 33. And while I got this guy up here, by the way, the pointy part here is called the rostrum. It's their nose. I'm going to show you how to clean it. So if you don't want to see me, you know, murder the shrimp, go ahead and skip ahead about 15 seconds. So all you do is put your thumb right here under the carpus and pull it out. Voila, that's a clean shrimp. And you can throw the head right back in. You can see Shingo's buoy is much better done. It's got that Candy King stripe, green flag, clearly a Shingo pot. Alright, we're pulling Shingo's big pot. Like I said, this one usually does really well. Off to a slow start so far. Woo, that looks good. I guess it's 50. Oh, it might be even more. But I'll stick with 50. What Shingo and Vanessa are doing is Shingo is cleaning, Vanessa's holding the bag open. Those bags are extremely helpful. You can either put 20 or 40 shrimp to a bag and then eventually put 80, you know, combined bags at the end just for the limits. And I just have this little igloo cooler that I have. It's much smaller than a regular cooler. And that's all you need. Just fill one of those things halfway up full of ice and you're good. It's really important that you do kill them quick, because probably the biggest mistake Tim and I made in that first shrimp quest there was if you just let them die of natural causes, they kind of turn to mush. So I would pop their heads off and get them on ice ASAP.
70.
All right, 70. So that puts us at between the 3 pulls, between 3, 33, and 70. That puts us at 106. All right, here comes the 4th pull. Oh, it's looking pretty good. Oh, that looks real good. I bet we're gonna be flirting with 2 limits here. Very refreshing after that first pull of 3. We're gonna get this guy right back. I think this is what they call a squat lobster. It could be terribly off. We'll look it up. But he has like a shrimp-like tail, but terrifying claws, and he's actually quite aggressive. Back you go, friend. Oh, he's swimming off. Oh, he swims really cool. All right, so that last pull put us at a total of 170, and 2 limits is 160, so we only need 70 more to finish our day. Probably won't, I think we're pretty good as far as the video goes. I think I've told you everything I know about Hood Canal Shrimping 101. Taking a chicken strip break here. And again, Shingo and I, and Vanessa as well, like to do Southern Hood Canal just because of hood sport and being able to eat ice cream and chicken and, you know, for me, drink coffee. But there's shrimp all over Hood Canal, and in the lean years, sometimes they'll be further north, or sometimes they won't be in the north, and they will be down in the south. This year, they seem to be pretty abundant all over. So, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed Hood Canal Shrimping 101.